Hey, I'm Kimberly with Elixir Mentor. Jacob recently added recruitment services to help companies hire pre-vetted Elixir devs. I help with company outreach, so if you're hiring, I may be reaching out, or you can connect with us anytime at elixirmentor.com.
Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial.io. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm joined with Bobby Clayson, CEO of Crofter Market, who's using Elixir to build marketplaces that connect local farmers directly with consumers. Welcome, Bobby. Thank you so much for being here with me. Do you want to give a brief introduction of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast. So my background is I'm a CEO, founder. I'm on the business side now, but my background is as a software engineer, and I've been involved kind of in the tech startup space in Utah since 2012. Worked for my first startup back then, got addicted to the environment, the creativity, and all the opportunities there. I've pretty much worked for or started my own startups since that time. Worked for a handful of startups, got really into the functional paradigm of programming, mostly in the Clojure space, a couple other languages as well. And then in early 2018, I co-founded a company called TaxBit, which is completely unrelated to what I'm doing right now. It was cryptocurrency, tax, and accounting software. Started out consumer-based and went enterprise as kind of a pivot about a year in. Did that for a couple of years, got bought out, took an exit for myself at that time period. And now I'm here starting my new project, Crofter Market, which is an online farmers market and 3PL distribution system.
Okay, that's awesome. I feel like that's just a typical move for a software engineer, entrepreneurial type person. Yeah. Completely different marketplaces. Yes. When you have ideas, right?
Yeah, you can kind of see the similarities between the two in the abstract. Like my interest in crypto and helping enable the adoption of crypto was related to the decentralization of our financial system, right? That's a deeply needed thing in our country. There's far too much power concentrated in a few hands in that regard. And then I discovered post-COVID, or really during COVID, because of the supply chain issues we saw with food, that the same centralization had occurred in the food space. For example, back over the last 4 decades, we've lost about 50% of our ranchers in the country. We've lost 80% of our dairies and roughly about the same of our pig farms. And the chicken industry is completely controlled by basically one entity that rules it with an iron fist. So you really see a lot of the same issues with centralization, where you have this middleman party that is using their position, their monopoly, their oligopoly in order to extract value and really take from the producer and from the consumer at the same time and give themselves excessive margins. And so from that perspective, I guess I'm really passionate about decentralization. I want to see things distributed. And of course, you take that another step into the abstract, and you can kind of see how that adds up to my interest in Elixir as well. As distributed and fault tolerant is what we want, not centralized single points of failure. So
yeah, that's awesome. You basically just you're creating the blockchain of groceries, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're trying to, the mission of Crofter is to allow the average consumer to buy directly from their local farmer with transparency. there's a lot of conditions in the market that are kind of driving these trends. People have become increasingly more aware of the practices of conventional, or we could say industrial farms, that make our food significantly less healthy and less nutrient dense. Mm-hmm. You've got sort of institutional countermeasures like organic, but even those terms have begun to become polluted by the institutions to be less significant, and people have less trust even in institutions that say this is healthy, this is whatever. They see the word games that are being played.
It's these wild marketing gimmicks now based around organic.
Well, you get weird things like in the honey space, you get, it's 100% honey. And then someone points out like, no, there's corn syrup in there. And you're like, how are they allowed to label it 100% honey? And you look at the reasoning, the rationale through the regulators, and it's like 100% of the honey in that bottle is 100% honey.
Ridiculous.
The 10% high fructose corn syrup that they add to cut it to increase their margins is, so they get away with these kind of silly word games that they play really well. So what people are really craving at this point is access to local food, access to healthy food, and transparency. They know the farm that it came from. They know the practices. They can investigate exactly how that was raised to their satisfaction. And so that's kind of the trend that we're working on and taking a part of.
No, I love that. Like, especially just like kind of making it easier to find the local resources too. Because this is like something I always think about, right? But I don't make the time to actually source where I should be buying my food from locally. So like a platform like Crofter's perfect. I'm your user.
Yes, 100%. And that's really kind of that's the realization we had is, all right, so what if people want to find, let's say, regeneratively raised beef? If people are familiar with that term, it basically means that they're using a set of practices where they're creating a little ecosystem that allows them to avoid agrochemical inputs and other things like that. If they want to find that, it's like, all right, how do I find it? I guess I can Google search it. Oh, there's one over in this other state. I guess they'll ship it to me, but I got to pay shipping costs. I don't buy groceries that way. I don't buy groceries in bulk. I don't have a chest freezer for a quarter cow or half cow. I'll go to the farmer's market. Okay, well, that's seasonal. I'll find those people. How do I find them afterwards? How do I go get my food afterwards? So the two problems that we identified early that we're trying to solve for the consumer and for the producer on our marketplace is searchability and fulfillment. Like, you need to be able to search what you're looking for conveniently and easily, and that's where the marketplace comes in. And then you need to be able to receive it conveniently. You don't want to drive out to the farm. You don't want to wait for Saturday farmers market. In most cases, you don't want to get shipped in bulk. People have started to kind of accept that a little bit, but it's still not how most people shop. Mm-hmm. And so that's our objective, is to solve both of those problems.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I live in an apartment currently, right? So I don't have a chest freezer or anything. So when if you can buy a half a cow, that's amazing, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah, and plus it's like $1,800 to buy half a cow.
Right.
And so it's like when you're living in an age where people are using Klarna to buy their burrito,
that's wild, dude.
Yeah, people are stretched out thin already, and even if they want to buy the meat and they're willing to pay the price per pound, it doesn't mean they've got they want to rack up their credit card bill and pay 28% interest.
It's wild how many things you get like flex pay options for now. Yeah. Like even my rent here, I can like pay throughout the month. Like, that would be wild to have to be in that position, but clearly a lot of people are, because those options exist.
Yeah, it helps close rates, but it makes people feel like they can afford something, and it can be helpful in some ways. If we offered that for like half a cow, I wouldn't feel too bad about it, but sometimes it can almost feel predatory and make you feel like, oh, I can pay $4 today and, pay it for the next 4 months. And then your bill is just like payments all the time.
Can we like rewind, go back a little bit? I'm curious, like what happened like between your exit at it was TaxBit?
TaxBit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like what was like the window? What was the aha moment when when you came up with Crofter? Like I know you kind of mentioned COVID and like just the whole.
This was an idea that it took some time for me to really like want to jump into it, to be honest with you. But the first kind of realization happened in 2020 when we were literally being rationed beef at the store. And I'm going like, okay, I get it. There's issues, but why is it that I'm driving by cows in Naples, Salem, and then I get to the store and the store is empty and there's signs that are like 2 pounds per customer per visit. That's all you can do. So the first thing was what's the issue with the supply chain? And I'm immediately a curious person. So I just did some research and it was like, well, there are 4 companies that own 85% of the market in meat slaughtering. And their facilities are massive. And if one of them gets shut down, it was during the era where it's like you get a couple of positive tests and they shut a whole factory down. And that's exactly what happened. So you have massive decentralized, huge institutions. There's an issue. Those get shut down and suddenly, 5% of our beef supply is not getting to market. Then I saw this video from a rancher who's actually now on our advisory board, which is really cool how we ended up getting in contact with him. But he did this viral video where he basically said like all of these shutdowns are going to drive ranchers out of business because they're a choke point and they cut off the choke point. We're getting rationed on this side. And then you have all the farmers on the other side who are sitting on the inventory, so to speak, mm-hmm. right? But they can't just storage their inventory. It's a live animal. They got to keep feeding it. They've got to incur those costs. And so they had to euthanize millions of animals in 2020 and early 2021, dealing with these supply chain issues. So I went, okay, so there's no way for this farmer to get their stuff to market. And then it was just kind of a cascade from there. I just kept looking at the food industry and was getting more interested in health and started to research a lot of the problems that we have in our food system. And it just became apparent that it was the centralization that's creating less healthy, less nutrient dense, I would call it contaminated food. The amount of chemicals that are being used and hormones and things like that literally contaminate what we're eating. The processing contaminates everything, and it's all in the name of industrial agriculture, and it's enriching a small centralized group. So over time, I realized, this could be solved using a marketplace. And so that was our first move into it in 2023. We released a prototype for our marketplace at the end of 2023 and tried to get some traction through 2024. We onboarded a bunch of Utah farmers and started to do marketing. And we realized towards the end of 2024 that we were really only solving half the problem. Yeah, sure, you could go on and search for everything, but you had to drive out to the farm to go get what you wanted, or you had to get it shipped to you and incur shipping costs. And what can be shipped to you? Like frozen meat. That's about it. You can't ship milk, you can't ship eggs economically, you can't ship produce reliably without some temperature controls or something. So we were limited in terms of what we could do, and we're trying to push ad spend to drive it. And we're realizing who are we competing with here? We're competing with ButcherBox at this point. And the only benefit that we have is that we're local. So it's local meat. So it's like, that's not enough differentiator. And again, we can only really focus on frozen meat. And so towards the end of 2024, we were like, okay, we have to engage in logistics, which is, as someone with a tech background, that's like terrifying. I'm like, no, we solve things with software.
It's hard. Like,
it's really hard. It's really hard. You get into something else. And so we kind of realized that that's something we needed to do, but we were reticent to tackle it because it just wasn't in our wheelhouse. And we just had to do a ton of research and get some consultation to really feel comfortable with it. And so then in 2025, earlier this year, we pulled together another $500,000 to move forward with trying some form of distribution. So we built this refrigerated trailer that's basically like the milk trucks that you see around, and we've got fridge and freezer space in there. And then we started to do marketing. We started going to farmers markets. We started doing it so that you bought online and then you showed up. And that's when we finally started to see traction in the direction that we needed. And we realized, okay, we're now actually solving our customers' problems, and we can advance that. We can continue to build this out because we've bridged the gap.
yeah. So I'm curious, just so like your MVP was essentially kind of a directory at first. Like you were just connecting local resources to people, right? And that was it.
Pretty much. I mean, you could purchase through our marketplace, but fulfillment was either pickup or delivery, and pickup meant you had to go to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Delivery meant you could only do meat.
And that's probably also difficult because then the farmer has to deal with end users instead of just
100%.
yeah.
So that's a big thing too, is like lots of farmers would love to go direct to consumer, and they're dipping their toe in it. But it's like, if the average farmer, they're not a marketing specialist. They're not a customer service rep.
I'm guessing they're a lot like your average software developer. You don't want to actually customer face,
No, you don't. You want to take the nice picture of that farmer with his cows, and you want to keep that nice buffer between the two.
Exactly.
They're really nice people at the end of the day, but that's just not their world. Their world is farming, and it's getting into something you're unfamiliar with is too difficult. So that was the other part we realized. In order to add producers, is that we needed to do a bigger lift for them. For example, if they want to go direct to consumer, they've got to have their own temperature controlled storage space for all of their product, and they've got to have they got to figure out how to ship what they're doing and take orders and all that kind of stuff. So starting the 3PL side was, all right, let's rent some fridge and freezer space. They just get their product to us in bulk, and then we inventory it, hold on to it, and then deliver it to the customer.
Yeah. No, that's wild. So we were chatting a little bit before I went live, and we realized we needed to stop because we were taking away, good podcast moments. But what's funny is we both got into the Elixir space because we were building a marketplace. I was building like a digital workout, like connecting personal trainers with clients, and then you could like shop for specific workouts, typical like digital marketplace. Very easy, right? Like no physical refrigeration or, nothing involved. And that is extremely difficult. And I learned a very hard lesson. Like, one, I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at like onboarding. And I'm a software developer. I enjoy building things, doing that. And I was spending my days onboarding, influencer type people, on one end. And then you also have to try to get clients to want to buy your product. And when you're first starting, your marketplace is like so bare, and you're like, well, how do I make this not look like there's nothing here? Yes. And it's hard, that double-sided marketplace. And then I find out like years later that it's the most difficult thing to tackle without any seed money or anything. And I was bootstrapping, and it's hard, especially when you can't afford to hire help.
Yeah, completely. Marketplaces is one of those, it's like the startup space is already high risk, high reward. It's higher risk, higher reward. It really is, because most marketplaces, once they start to work, they're kind of winner take all things that really blow up. And as you know, their scalability is massive, so they can grow exponentially in ways that other things can't. But that cold start problem is the mountain that you have to climb early on, and you got to figure out how to do that. The things that have helped us along the way on that regard is just tapping into the industry knowledge. If anybody's looking to start a marketplace, the two books that I would recommend would be The Platform Revolution, and the second one is called The Cold Start Problem.
By Andrew Chen, I think. I read that one. It's a good book.
It's excellent, and it's really loaded with industry lessons, and like, here's all the flavors of marketplace. Here's the components that you have to get right and think about, and here's how to understand network effects and things like that. But if you look at how all these other companies started, it was like, DoorDash was basically doing free delivery early on to get
they just burn cash. Like, that's like, you almost need to raise money just to burn cash.
Yes, just to get started and get moving. And so that can be super, super challenging. And then they got to switch to figure out how to pay for it. And it's like, what's the other one? Uber was paying drivers to sit around because there's not enough to do where you can pay them per ride at the time. That's how they had to bootstrap it. That's how they cold started off the ground and then get it moving.
So I'm curious, what did your cold start problem look like? How did you solve it, and how did you work through it?
So here's our big the big cold start problem. When you look at a marketplace, most marketplaces have a producer and a consumer side. It's not always the case. Social media is a little bit more vague with that, where everyone's both producers and consumers to a degree, depending on the platform. But the way that we started it was, we're like, well, we have to fill this with product. We have to fill it with product. It's got like 3 things on it. We shouldn't spend a dime on marketing at this point, because it's just not interesting enough. So our first step was to onboard farmers. Well, our big issue with farmers is that even the ones that are trying to sell direct to consumer, they're like relatively progressive in the space, are still like, I've got limited time and resources, and if you cost me anything and it doesn't work out, I'm not willing to take that risk. They don't know who you are. Their community is understandably somewhat distrustful of outside people claiming to solve problems with tech, because they've seen that come through many times. And so we had trust issues coming in to a degree. We had trying to get them to give us the time of day to get their stuff on there and get them onboarded going. We had a lot of questions about how their side would work and aversion using technology, and just a whole bunch of different things. And we just had to work it. We started out by creating a few friendships in that area that we added to our advisory board to work our way into that community. And then our next objective was okay, we need to show success for a handful of our core farmers so that we can go talk to other people and say, this is what we did for them. That's a huge part of it is the average person who's in agriculture is very concrete and literal, and they want to see evidence and they want to see facts. They are not prone to getting excited about hype like you see in the rest of the Silicon Slopes or Silicon Valley space with tech. It's a very hype driven place, and they are allergic to hype. That's immediately you're making too big of promises. So you have to show them some facts. So that was a big thing right there. And then it's okay, well, we've got the farmers on, we've made it as low risk and time investment for them as possible. We've given them some white glove treatment. We've helped them create images and descriptions and done so much of the early work for them. And now we got to go drive sales. And then we had issues driving sales because we hadn't solved the second problem. And so we're sitting there going like, we don't know what we're going to do. And trying to figure that part out. And so the next part was like, well, we need to do a bigger lift for everybody here. And that's where we decided to add the 3PL and distribution services in. And now we feel like we're getting this early traction, but our next step to this two-sided problem, like a huge part of a marketplace is that you're balancing. You need producers to have consumers, and you need consumers to have producers. So we get our producers in play, we get them to sell out, but not too bad. And then we go to other producers and say, we need more supply than what we're getting. And so you're just kind of, it's like using a fish to catch a fish. Like you catch one fish, you use that fish to catch the next bigger one over and over again to try and spin this thing up. And then eventually your hope is that it reaches this point of size and reputation that it begins to become its own gravity and begin to pull people in organically.
So I'm a little curious with like the farmer side of things, the producer side, right? Do they have their own like dashboard onboarding where they inventory what they have?
So that was kind of our original thing that we had built for them. But at this point, we've basically moved to we're the 3PL, and all they need to do, their dashboard is what we need from them in ours. And so now we are using those tools internally for ourselves as the distributor, and they could not be happier with that arrangement. They know how to put
so like what you take gets paid for, and it's just ongoing circle.
Yeah, well, we don't retail it where we're paying for it first. We take a commission once we sell it.
I see.
But yeah, once we said, hey, give us some inventory, and then we sold it really quickly, and then we're like, well, we need more, and they're like, heck yeah, here's more. And it became easier and easier to get them to give us bigger quantities so that we could keep our stuff stocked and figure out that process. So.
That's really cool. What were like your biggest like growing pains once you like added refrigeration and the more 3PL side of things? Like how much do you store? Like what's like how much like loss do you have in food? Like cuz is it just meat right now, or is it like vegetables? Is it everything?
Yeah, so we are doing
produce. That's the word.
Part of our direction as we went. If we do produce, we're locked to seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want a big wave of sales, and then what do we do and stuff like that. And the other thing was, we're trying to drive consistent sales. We want to add subscriptions to this so people can get free delivery to their house if they order on a regular basis, and then they always know it's coming and they've got this big variety. So our thing was we wanted to start with things with a long shelf life because they're refrigerated or frozen. So it's not about preservatives or processing. It's just about keeping it cold at the right temperature. And we wanted to do things that were staples, things that people buy every month or every week at a grocery store and solve that problem. And so we are heavily meat, but we are also eggs. Well, that's one of our biggest sellers is pasture raised organic eggs. And then we also do some microgreens and we do some of these vegetable boxes as well as kind of part of our seasonal component. But yeah, that's our focus right now. We want to expand into dairy and a bunch of other stuff. Oh, we also have bread. So in terms of prepared goods, we also do sourdough bread and stuff like that. So yeah, we're a bit expanding what we're capable of handling logistically is a big part of our objective. In terms of the big issues with logistics, was the first thing was space and process and procedure and like trying to get it to pencil out and just figure out, all right, how does this turn around at scale? And really, we're just kind of in the early phases of figuring out what our problems even are. Okay, what's our what does our order size need to be so that we're not constantly taking small orders? How much space do we need? How much can we actually fit in a particular location? So it's all this stuff that you're just, it's like right sizing your servers. You're always figure out how to not have too much and too little. So in some ways, the problems are similar to what you might find with programming when you're trying to figure out resource acquisition and efficiency. But of course, it's a completely new domain. So it's a lot of consulting with people who know what they're doing, and it's a lot of guess and check on our work to make it work.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to just put this on pause real quick. Got a quick ad and then we'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Kimberly with Elixir Mentor. Jacob recently added recruitment services to help companies hire pre-vetted Elixir devs. I help with company outreach, so if you're hiring, I may be reaching out, or you can connect with us anytime at elixirmentor.com.
I'm still getting used to training myself to play those because it's like so easy to just be involved in the conversation and then 30 minutes rolls by and I was like, I should do that. What was like your biggest, like when you went from, because you were kind of like the MVP, you built your first marketplace, right, in Elixir, so like you're a very technical founder.
Yeah.
How were the growing pains when you like stepped out of that role and became more like CEO?
Yeah. The first hardest part is someone who is technical is getting your fingers out of the code. That's a big element there, is just being able to let that go.
Yeah, you have the most potential to be like the most annoying micromanager out there, right?
Exactly. And that's anybody who comes in with I'm a marketing guy or I'm a whatever guy, and then you move into a founder role and it's like, yeah, of course you're going to think you know what's going on, try and stick your fingers in.
Yeah.
The benefit to me was, I built the prototype in Elixir, which I learned Elixir while I was building, and I had known it before. I was a Clojure guy. And so Clojure and Python and stuff like that. And so bringing somebody on who was like 5-6 years of Elixir experience, it was much easier to let it go because he's just an excellent engineer. And immediately we do some pair programming early on when I went in the transition phase, and I'm like, yeah, I'm outmatched here. I feel very confident to let somebody else make my Elixir code a lot better. And that's exactly what he did. So that was a big issue there. The good thing for me in terms of my transition to CEO is that I really got into programming because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's really what it came down to is I wanted to be able to build and prototype my own stuff. And so it wasn't as big of a leap for me as other technical co-founders that I've found, because I've been thinking about that for a long time. And I've been working at startups where I've been working very closely with CEOs, marketing teams, sales teams, the VP of product and everybody involved there, and just asking tons of questions. So that's one of the things that I tell anybody who wants to start their own company is your first steps. There's lots of really great books out there everybody knows and can give you, and they're all fantastic and really informative. But you really should go work for someone else's startup, and you should really work for someone else's startup that has less than 20 employees. That's my opinion, because you can see, I've witnessed in multiple instances, the difference between 20 employees and 30 employees. It's like a magic line you start to cross where you stop knowing everybody so much.
Right. And little like you get compartmentalized a little bit once you hit that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the culture naturally shifts a little bit just because it has to, and you start bringing people on. So that's what I tell people is like, go be that person that's willing to take the risk for some nutcase like me who wants to try something. Even if it doesn't work out, you're going to gain massive amounts of experience.
When you were, did you raise seed money or like Series A or anything like that to kind of help you get off the ground? What did that look like?
Yeah, so we did a pre-seed round
Okay.
to get going, and that was friends and family and myself. And the benefit of having a really good exit with TaxBit is I've been able to fund most of this project myself, which has been really nice. It's given me a little bit more control and ownership of what I'm doing, and it's allowed me to focus more on growth and constantly fundraising. We are entering fundraising territory right now for seed money to expand our 3PL and all of the things that we're beginning to see traction on. But yeah, that's where we're at. I've been blessed enough to be able to fund most of it myself, and then have friends and family who thought it was a good idea too. So
Yeah, no, that's an amazing position to be in too, because yeah, you hear so many horror stories when people just kind of lose control of their own idea because you take the
yeah,
wrong VC money, and then you just have board members that want their exit in like 5 years.
yeah, they're moving kind of towards their agenda, and of course the VC space is full of every flavor of awesome person who has vision and all the way to predatory. We're here to elite
Yeah.
you and stuff like that, and everything in between. And so that's definitely an issue, and that's one of the things you get. You get young founders who they want to make a big splash. They have a good idea. They become good presenters, and then they get into that space, and they're diluted and controlled pretty quickly. So it's one of those things that people think that the idea is everything, how good your idea is, and your idea is like such a small percentage actually.
Hmm.
That's like, you have to have a good idea. You can't have a bad idea and have it be successful, because people won't want it. It's not how it works. So it's
I always
necessary.
make a joke, like, because I've worked for some startups where they kind of invented the problem that they're trying to solve, and that doesn't really work.
Oh no, yeah, you can't be a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah,
find real problems and
yeah.
solve these problems, and you can't be married to a piece of technology and think, how do I? This is my weapon. What do I destroy with it? You gotta fall in love with the problem,
And
definitely.
I know I've said this before on this podcast, but I always find it funny when like people want you to sign an NDA for their idea.
Yeah,
Like,
see that
guys, you know how much passion you need behind that good idea to actually pull it off?
that's a major rookie mistake. Like
Yeah,
it's a rookie tell when somebody goes, I don't know if I want to tell you my idea.
I know.
I offend every entrepreneur when I hear that, because I just look them in the face and I'm like, your idea is nothing. And
Right. It's you don't there's no such thing as
I'm
a
like, let me finish. Your idea is important, but if you think that that is the secret sauce, and that if you let it out into the world, someone's going to steal it and destroy you, it's not usually how it works, because it's really about execution and knowing the
oh,
space. And you should focus way more on getting leadership experience. If you're going to be a founder and a CEO, you're a leader. And that's like the most undertrained component in the startup space, in my opinion. Is not enough people go, how do I be a good leader? How do I lead a team? How do I
it's
manage?
hard.
That's the hardest part of what you're doing. That's really everything that you're doing, is you're leading a direction. You can be really intelligent in a lot of ways, and if you're a bad leader, you can't get people to move in the right direction in concert. That's a huge skill. And then the other part of that is learning the startup ecosystem, including the pitfalls. And so you need mentorship, you need to do research, you need to pay attention, you need to understand all the little ins and outs. You don't have to be an expert necessarily, but you should at least have some good counseling, good resources, so you understand what you're getting into
Yep.
and how to avoid some of those traps that can be there.
Yeah, I always say there's no such thing as $1 million idea. Like, 'cause
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're just ideas.
It's a free idea. It's a free
Yeah.
idea because it
So
costs you
like,
zero to come up with it.
and then I always joke because like the busier I am, the more like great ideas that pop into my head that I want to build. And it's like so hard to be like, dude, you don't have time to build this. Like, put the brakes on. So like, yeah, I'll tell everyone my good ideas. Just like, I hope someone steals my good ideas. Like, that would be amazing.
please take it. Pay me a royalty if you think it's worth something.
No, you know what? Just take it and run, because otherwise it goes against my statement of there's no $1 million idea.
Exactly. But if they're convinced that it's,
Yeah. But like I ran like a consultancy for a couple years, and like a lot of times you kind of have to internally laugh because so many people didn't want to have a conversation about you building their software without signing NDAs. And like I would, but I also like they're completely pointless because you're assuming I have time to steal your idea.
Yep. And second, you think that I think that stealing your idea means I'm happy to destroy my consultancy, because who's gonna hire me after I stole one person's idea?
Right. Zero. It would work one time, right?
It would work one time, and it better work.
Mm-hmm.
And even then.
Yeah, it's wild. How was it? Like, did you find it difficult to like onboard like I don't know if he's a CTO or like technical founder or whatever you ended up making your first Elixir engineer? Was it difficult to onboard him? Like, was it like lower pay, like lower salary, higher like shares? Like, what was the balance that you worked out, and how did you find that process?
Yeah, so I got super lucky because I've been in the exact same position where I'm trying to hire, because Elixir is a great tech, but it's a minority tech. We're grateful to be in Utah, where there's more Elixir engineers than you might find at other locations. But still, it's like that was one of the decisions early on with going with Elixir. You're trying to balance the productivity of the language and the stability of what it's like the whole paradigm. In my opinion, functional programming languages are productivity accelerators because they solve so many little problems.
Oh, I agree.
In the programming world, and you get that benefit, but then you're like, I can get away with less personnel, but I also need to find those personnel, which can be challenging. And I just got lucky, frankly, because I started searching and I found somebody who was at the end of their contract, and like you and like a lot of people, they heard about it and they were like, I'm your customer. I love this and I want this to work. And so, so then from that point on, it was pretty clear that he was that he's an excellent developer, just really sharp, incredibly productive. But he was more expensive than we were hoping for at that time. But yeah, we just had to negotiate some equity in exchange for his involvement. He's not quite a technical co-founder, but he's getting, early employee, like employee number one, employee number two, equity in the whole thing. And so, yeah, we just had to negotiate that and find something that was worth it to both of us. And I think the big clincher that made it work was the fact that he was passionate about the project.
I was going to say, how important is that to you even today? Like, do your developers have to be passionate, or do you hire for skill only?
Yeah, so we've got 2 developers right now, and both of them are extremely passionate about what we're doing. I feel like it's a gradient. The earlier you are, the more that passion is relevant. Mm-hmm. As you get bigger, like by necessity, you kind of have to loosen your requirements for that person to be really passionate about the project. So I would say right now, as we expand, it's still going to be quite important because, there's a lot of reasons that people are willing to go through the rigors of the startup space. There's reasons people think that they want to start their own company that are always wrong. And it's like, oh, I hate having a boss. It's like, all right, try having an investor, see how that feels. That's
same thing, right? Or worse, probably.
It can be worse because this person just gave you money and like you're in like there's no fault divorce here. You're stuck basically with this group of people until you make it or break it. Basically the passion is really what gets you through. the challenges of the early days, and everyone has to endure challenges and work extra hard early on. And if you don't care about not just the payday at the end of the day, like money is really only so motivating. This is something I discovered. If you don't love building, if you don't have a competitive fire, if you don't have passion for what you're trying to accomplish, or something else that carries you through the abyss, money and not wanting to have a boss on your back is just like not even close to being motivating enough.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Like, yeah, it's a difficult thing because, like, I have been my own boss. I currently have a boss, and like you go through, you know, hating having a boss versus, but like you just have different problems throughout your day.
Yeah.
Like, and no matter what, there's going to be something you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah, 100%. Most of the things that you have to do, you're not going to enjoy doing.
Yeah.
You're just going to be really elated when those things work out, and then
Yeah.
so it feels worth the process. But that's something else that a lot of people should know is like, you think it's hard having a boss, try being a boss. It's much more challenging, and that's one of the
Yeah.
benefits that I've seen and had over the last few years is you see how much harder that job is and get respect for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like what's funny is just like my Elixir mentor branding, right? I've made YouTube videos, I started this podcast, and I basically have done free work for 3 years before I figured out a good way to monetize it. And that was like through like I started like a recruitment side of things, like where we do the pre-vetting for talent, and then
Yes.
we deliver, like we just say, hey, we promise they're good for the position, you just do the culture fit. And but it took me, like growing this community, it took a lot of labor and work and sleepless nights because I always had a day job or something else going on with this. And it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard, and I think one of the things that makes me feel confident that we can stick with Elixir is that people like you are around to help source that and
Yeah.
and give a nice funnel for vetted Elixir devs so that we can cut down some of our process and find people who are interested in what we're doing.
Well, like,
That's
and honestly, it's like startups like your size too. You have two developers. You don't want to give up those resources to do technical interviews.
no,
Like, it
no.
takes a lot of time.
It does take a lot of time, and so especially sort of the modern technical interview process can be very rigorous at some places.
Dude, it's wild. I think like the current, for a lot of companies, the current process, like where it's dragged out for over a month, sometimes 2 months,
So
and it's
dumb.
just technical interview after another. It's not like, I'd much rather get someone's hands on a keyboard and in the code base and fire them quickly
Yeah,
than make them jump through hoops for a month.
yeah. Show me your code. Talk to me. I don't know. I've been, I've interviewed at different places. Obviously, most of the time I hire from my network for that reason. Is I'm like, I don't want to take a risk on somebody. I want to talk to friends and get recommendations and get them moved over
Yeah,
because
people really underestimate that part. Like just inserting yourself into a community and having friends, having founders as friends, or just other engineers that are in good positions and they know your skill level. That's usually that's how I've gotten all my jobs almost in the past, is people have worked with me.
I'm way more interested in someone else vetting for someone that or vouching for somebody that they've worked with than my own technical analysis and sitting down with
Yeah.
somebody being interviewed.
Well,
I'm
and
like,
if they're not a good fit, you just
mhm,
move on quickly. Like you kind of set that expectation, right? Like, hey, we're going to do a little trial period. If it doesn't work out, we both move on. Cause like, you don't like, you can be a miserable employee as well. Like
that's
you
right.
might not like the culture you're working for. So it's kind of, it works for both sides.
Yeah, try it before you buy it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But like, that's kind of like, just one day I was sitting here and thinking like, Okay, selling courses doesn't work because I was making like a lot of beginner content and everything, and a lot of Elixir developers already in the space. They're more senior because they've
Yeah,
usually jumped through the hurdles in other
they
stacks, you
switched
know,
over. Mhm.
and then they switched over because they saw the light.
Yeah.
And so it's like the beginner stuff's great for free content because you get new people interested from like YouTube and that kind of thing. So I tried to sell courses and I couldn't figure out a good way to monetize my audience. It just wasn't working. And so now like with this podcast, I talk to a lot of cool people and then they become my friends, and then essentially I am like, hey, I have these talented people. I vetted them, and like there's that like bridge of trust.
100%. 100%. That's the way to hire, in my opinion. That's what
Yeah,
everyone needs to get on board with
I
is
agree.
build a
Uh,
community. Every development tech needs every engineer should be part of the communities that they care about the most, both for their personal skill set as well as their overall career
yeah,
trajectory.
and guys, you don't need permission. You just join and you just
Yeah.
start posting content, and then people start to know you.
Yeah. And if you're socially awkward, welcome to the club of everyone else there. You're going to be at home.
I am lucky. That is one thing that I never had, and I kind of
Yeah.
like considered it a superpower.
Yeah.
And even if you are socially awkward, just stick to it because it goes away.
It does go away. It does go.
At least enough, you know, like
Yeah.
you can still
Yeah.
be quirky. That's fine.
Hey, people expect engineers to be quirky. If you're not quirky, I think that's more suspect
Yeah,
sometimes.
you got to be a little weird. You need something off about you, but
Yeah. Wear orange pants or something
yeah,
interesting.
see, no one knows that I'm wearing orange pants because, you know,
Yep,
it's just
yep.
shoulders up. I'm as you like, I'm guessing you're very local, right? Like you're not reaching much out of probably like Utah County area, or how are you, what is
Yeah,
the like your scaling plan right now and how does that look?
exactly. Our scaling plan, especially with handling logistics, is very local. We need to be in reach for the farmers to deliver their food to us, and then we need to be able to deliver it by truck. So that's the big thing we're adding this month. We've been having these pickup truck arrangements, but now we're adding delivery to your door, and we want to have like same day to 24-hour max delivery to all of our consumers. And so focusing very narrowly, sort of going back to marketplace economics, being very geographically limited is really important
Hmm.
because you need a small place you can get your arms around metaphorically to start with and nail the components, nail the balance, the curation of your products, and all these other things. And then once you nail that, you're going to expand. You're going to hit new areas and repeat the same process. But of course, every single circumstance is going to be a little bit different. You're going to go into Salt Lake City and you're going to see something else. You're going to go to Denver, Dallas, New York, whatever, and you're going to see individual differences in how you build and expand that network there. But you're going to take those initial lessons with you. So we're very Utah County focused, and we've been venturing into Salt Lake County recently. And so those are kind of our focus areas right now.
Okay. I'm curious, like what kind of like saturation point, or do you have like some sort of data point that you hit where you're like, okay, I think we can expand a little bit?
Yeah, I wish there was something super, super clear. It's kind of about finding, it's kind of like mining, I guess. You kind of find veins where it's like, okay, we accidentally tapped into this community existing network, and now all of a sudden a bunch of people are buying from us. And so I guess we better start increasing our logistics capacity in that area. And so you get some preliminary things. You want to build an interest list. You want to find existing networks that you can tap into. You want to develop your own network. And so those are kind of the leading indicators of how to get into a space. And then you just have to anticipate that you're going to have to spend a lot of money in marketing getting that. jump started.
I think like especially like you have like physical locations and delivery, right? So I think
Yeah.
it makes a lot more sense to people when you're thinking about like marketplace, like geographical locations. But like even like on the grand scheme, like from my standpoint where I was making a fitness marketplace, right? It's still super important to focus on small geographical areas on launch because like so many people think you're just going to launch to the world and then
Right.
blow up overnight, right? But you can't do that.
And you really don't want to, because the thing that you can experience, a really good example in the market space area back in like the early 2000s to mid 2000s. I'm forgetting the name of the dating app site. Might have been OK Cupid, or one of the ones that kind of had some initial success and then flamed out in the process. Pre-Tinder. This was all old school dating websites.
Okay.
One of their issues was curation. Like, they got tons and tons of people to come on the app, and it was a big thing because they had like these tests that would determine personality and help you match. Might have been Match.com, but I can't remember which one it was. But anyway,
there's a lot of them.
there was a lot of them, especially back then. But basically, what their issue was this kind of funny economics curation issue, where they had all the men, they looked at their data and they saw all their men were sort of going after the top 10, the 20% of women. And those women would become so overwhelmed with messages and stuff like that that they would leave the app. So they leave the app because there's no barrier process to be able to interact with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next sort of level of women would then get all the attention, and then they would leave. And then there's not as many women, and so the men start to leave. So you started with positive network effects, where the more people on, the more valuable it is. And then you get people leaving because you're not gatekeeping properly, and you're creating a negative experience, which spirals it out.
Dude, curation is one of the hardest problems to solve. Like,
Curation is absolutely, and so early on, it's very manual. You don't have a crowdsource your process. You have to design it as if you're not a marketplace to get it off the ground, and then you got to figure out how to like hand it off to a crowd process.
mm-hmm.
So that's where we started to get apps like Tinder and stuff like that. After that experience was, okay, you can't reach out unless we both agree that we want to interact, and otherwise there's a barrier to interacting.
Right.
This is what I've heard. I've never used Tinder. I've been married for 15 years. So
I have not used dating apps either, but I understand the concepts of them.
Thank goodness. But yeah, that's the people who are most successful, in my opinion, nail curation.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Like, I'm also curious so back to like the scaling, is it more like a growing radius, or like, do you think you'll be like kind of pick it up and plunk another spot, like maybe like Denver or something, like as your next like move as you start to expand?
Yeah, I think in the state of Utah, in order to have a wide enough base and dense enough customer base, you got to kind of start metropolitan or suburban. And so that's kind of where we're at with Utah and Salt Lake County. We've got plenty of population density, especially now, to engage there. But that's kind of the veins that we need to stick into. And I think those can kind of expand concentrically over time. But in order to get some rapid expansion, we really need to pick it up and recreate a small version of the team in some other city around us, and try and repeat that exact process.
Right. Like, you need to onboard like farmers again and like everything. And it's like starting over. You're building a new app but at least you have the infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really, when you look at one of the playbooks that we have started to steal more and more from, is Amazon, because they're a marketplace. They also do retail, and they also do third-party logistics. It's the same thing. You ship your product to them, and then they guarantee prime delivery or 2-day delivery or whatever the customer is paying from their perspective right there, and they monetize both sides of that, they take a commission, they take a fee, they charge for storage and all that kind of stuff. And so it's obviously a model which can be a bit capital intensive given the physical infrastructure, but we've also seen that it has the capacity to take over a market in a very relatively short period of time compared to starting a traditional grocery chain.
Like logistics and like your in-house software and management of that is going to be like your coolest tech. Like that is so incredibly hard, especially with food, because things expire.
Yeah, things expire. You got to track things all the way through. It's one of the cool things. We did not think about this, or I didn't think about this when I adopted Elixir. Like I was aware of the IoT and Industry 4.0 applications that were out there, frameworks like NERVs, but we didn't really think of that as something relevant to us. We just thought like, oh man, Phoenix is so cool and fast and and fault tolerant. And but now that we're getting into logistics, we're like, oh, we can do supply chain tracking with Industry 4.0 tech that we can integrate with. We could start, instead of starting old school logistics, we can get moving on new Industry 4.0 techniques that allow you to track every single item that's going through your system, exactly where it's been and how it's been stored and where it ended up. And you can automate a whole bunch of components here to make it very efficient. And so we accidentally chose the tax out there in order to accomplish that. And then our Elixir engineer also has a background in electrical engineering, and he's done some IoT stuff. And so we get involved with this, and it's like, how did we luck into this guy, and how did we accidentally do the right tech in order to expand what we need to? So we're just super excited about the fact that we have those two worlds that can talk together, and it's out of the box. We can build it out from here however we want it.
Yeah, in another life, I did a lot of like manufacturing automation and stuff, and like programmable logic controllers and things. And like as of recently, I've really missed like IoT and getting my hands on hardware. So I'm currently in the process of recording and releasing an ASH course. But I think after this ASH course, I'm going to do a NERVs project, because I think it'll kind of change what my YouTube channel normally is, and we can like make something kind of cool that you get your hands on. So I think like NERVs is cool. I haven't like played around with it, but it's fun. So I'm going to bring back some of my automation day stuff that was like, over a decade ago now, but
and you think about how Elixir allows you to reason about those communication patterns.
Yeah.
It's all OTP type stuff. Like immediately, like when I'm first learning about OTP and Beam and all that kind of stuff, I'm really fascinated, and I'm like, this is so much easier to get your head around. And then someone was like, you should look at NERVs and the applications there. And I'm like, that's a hand in glove fit for those type of applications. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, that'll be cool. It'll be fun to watch Crofter grow. What's behind the name? Is there any meaning behind it?
Sure. Yeah. A crofter is an old English term for a small farmer.
Oh, all right.
Small. It's farmer's market.
Oh, I love that. That's cool. All right. What was that, a thesaurus find, or what was it? Or did you already?
Yeah, that was Google thesaurus. Right. Look for terms and stuff like that. We went through a couple different names that sounded really more SaaS company type thing, and we're like, we should try and go a little bit more in our space, in our lane that people will like. And
I mean, I didn't know what Crofter meant, but it sounds like what you're doing. Like it makes sense, So
your English heritage is telling you that that's the right.
Like, word. You know what? I feel like that's right.
Intuitive.
No, I love that. What are like some other? So you're starting to get traction because you're going to be delivering produce and food soon. What does your growth look like with other employees outside of tech? Because I know being like more technical based, but also like trying to start my own companies, like I think we all run into the same like we don't know what to do. Like who is your first like non-technical hire? I don't know if you've already had them or if it's just you right now, but what does that look like to you?
Yeah. So the first, early non-technical hires have really been people working for Sweat Equity part-time. And one of those has been my brother, who's has a marketing background. And so he's been our VP of marketing, or fractional VP, I guess, working for us part-time for some Sweat Equity, which is really good. That's a huge one right there, especially if you're doing a direct to consumer market, or any type of consumer marketing. You really got to get your marketing engine down. You can't just throw money at any marketing agency and make it work.
You
You
can
need
burn through money real fast just throwing up Facebook ads or something blind too.
really can, especially if you don't know what you're doing, or you're just finding any old marketing team and thinking that they're all the same. It's kind
There's
of
a
like
lot.
any engineering team or any tech stack is the same.
It's like when you hear horror stories of people hiring really bad consultancy firms to build software, and then they dump like 50 grand in and then end up having nothing.
Nothing.
And
Yeah.
like marketing, like there is so many shady companies out. There's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of shady ones too that just pretend they're
Yeah.
doing things for you, and it's really hard to like run an analysis on it too.
Yeah. 100% it is. And that's the other reason you need someone who's vested in the company that can help you vet that. And you also need, again, it comes back to reputation. I'm just a massive believer that reputation, reputation is way bigger than any analysis you can do on your own, which is why successful people are obsessive networkers, because they realize that it's just so much easier to tap their network and get a good recommendation than it is to try and evaluate just based on, you know, 30 people sent you an email saying we can use AI to market your stuff and it's going to be incredible. You don't know who
Hmm.
to actually
You know what's a
hire.
lot better is knowing some guys that are really good with AI and just reaching out.
Yeah, exactly. You need to have some network in place to get what you're doing. So technical. The big other thing that we have hired as well is a client manager, VP of client management, who is responsible for finding and onboarding farmers and managing that relationship. So he's everything from, and that's almost more following a direct sales model, which he's got a background in.
Okay.
For us, because our people are not highly technical, using digital marketing is just not a good way to get farmers on. We have
What
to
does
do it.
that look like? Like a lot of boots on the ground?
It's a lot of boots on the ground. It was just a matter of making some early connections and gaining trust with a handful of people, and then making it work for people. So we just had to build a lot of relationships, and then we had to find, one of the things that we did is made sure that we were finding people that were already selling direct to consumer. So they were already kind of in that vein halfway there, and we just said, hey, we don't charge you anything until we sell something. So we just need you to put your stuff on our site and then we'll go make it work. So we made it low risk for them, low time investment to get going. But still, we need a high touch relationship with them, where we're working out when they're going to drop stuff off and looking at a consistency of product and giving feedback. And so that's very high touch at this point. And that's obviously something that can be more automated at time, but right now it just needs a person sitting on it. So that's been our other major hire there. From here, it's going to be more technical people and somebody who can be completely over logistics. We're all kind of half wearing the logistics hat to get moving, and we've got some hourly employees that we do little things with there, but we need somebody who knows how to help us build this from the ground up and knows what we don't know yet. So that's our next major hire, is to say, all right, we've been outsourcing our logistics knowledge to whoever is willing to give us some advice. Now we need someone internally who will execute correctly every step of the way, help us build the product, sufficiently and tell us all the pitfalls.
Yeah. You any of this overwhelming to you, or is it more exciting?
That is like the answer, of course, is yes. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like the barrier between, or like the line between overwhelming and exciting is just right there.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, one of the things that I also tell up and coming entrepreneurs is like, you really shouldn't do this unless you have to, which is again just a funny thing to say.
Is
To
the have to ego though? Like, what is it? What do you think the original drive is?
For entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
okay, so I can speak personally on this, and then I know others that I could expand. But like personally, I'm quasi dysfunctional at a large company. That's really what it comes down to.
Same.
Large companies don't like idea. They don't like innovative people. I mean, they say they want innovation, but the innovation is like
In your lane
little
innovation, right?
tiny increments, and it takes so much to get a small change. And there's good reason for that because there's a lot more risk going
Right.
on. You're not, you're, you just, that's why large companies that want to innovate create R&D departments is because they want to be able to shove some portion of this into innovative growth that they can implement. But the bulk of their service is really about making it progressively more efficient and managing costs and all that kind of stuff.
I always joke that once there's an HR department, that's my cue to exit.
That's due to leave. Yes. Right now
Yeah.
I'm in the HR department, which is
Exactly. So it's safer.
it's safer for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but that is how I look at it. Is I work for a big company. I'm bored and I'm annoying to other people. Truly. And that's kind of been my whole experience in my life too, is like I was not a great student because I was either bored or annoying to other people with what I'm just like, well, let's talk about this subject a little bit more. And they're like, that's not on the test, shut up, type of thing. And so
Yeah. Too many
that
questions, right?
you're asking too many questions and you have too many opinions and all that kind of stuff. So those things that I was sort of felt like disadvantages earlier in my life became clear that they were advantages once I stepped into the startup space. I started working for a company called Spingo in 2012. And, I would speak up with an idea or say, I can solve that problem, I think, this way. And every other place that I worked, it was like, shut up, that's great. That's great. We'll ask your opinion when we want it from you. But at Spingo, it was like, oh, you can? Oh, you're willing to tackle that? Oh my gosh, please help us. And I'm like, what's happening right now? I'm not used to this experience.
That is nice. Like I've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to have always been part of like pretty small teams, so they're
Yes.
always open to like innovative ideas. But I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of agree. Like currently I'm at the biggest team I've ever been with, which is like I think there's like 22 of us, and I think that's about as big as I want to go.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, because just like I was saying earlier, it's like that somewhere around 20 employees, you feel the culture shift, and suddenly
Yeah.
there's some changes. And you can still flow with that, especially if you're in charge. I guess
Yeah, and you're still like talking, you like at least you still talk to like the CEO and like
Yes,
everyone like directly at that size, but
right.
I don't know a lot of the team, that like on the
Yes,
marketing side of things or
right.
product side of things, and there's like it's definitely very different versus like a five-person team where you're all on the same morning stand-up call.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, for me, it's just been it's just a matter of like there's got to be something at stake. I've got to have skin in the game. I have to have the opportunity to problem solve. There's got to be interesting problems to solve in order for me to be engaged. Then you get really excited about something and you bite off more than you can chew, and you feel that overwhelming pressure coming, and then you just figure out how to handle it or throttle it down or piecemeal all the things that are coming at you. So it's definitely it's the way I've described it to some friends who kind of asked me the same question is that I've never felt more optimistic and simultaneously stressed out in my life. like the perfect of like, this is definitely going to work. I can feel it. And also there is so much to handle that I cannot wait to get that extra bit of fun so I can push some of the responsibility to people who I can take some of those hats off and give them to somebody else. So
Yeah. Well, you're probably in one of the hardest stages right now because you're still wearing every hat practically.
yes, I'm wearing most hats, or my team members are. It's literally like who will raise their hand and can handle this issue right now, because we have to do everything together. And that's the other part of finding a passionate and interested team too, is if you find someone who's looking to coast on a good job and you ask them to go like cover a farmer's market for a weekend to do things, or like, hey, will you be our frontline customer service rep right now? I know you're a front end engineer, but will you please do that so that we can promptly respond to any customer service issues? You get a lot of people who are used to that corporate environment that look at you like, no, you're supposed to hire somebody for that. I don't do that job.
Customer service is a good way to test your patience.
Good way to test your patience. Yeah. Your resilience. You'll yell at customer service people less once you do the job, and they're like, dude,
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, dude, the amount of times you like bite your tongue and just have like a nice response back, like you don't ever want to be the dick on the other side of the call.
That must be difficult for you. So sorry. Let me figure out. It definitely requires a broad skill set. And so I think startups also really cater well to generalists, people who have broad interests and are willing to get some level of knowledge about every part of a business. That's how
I always like, I'll always say like I am a decent software engineer, but there's no way I'm like creating a framework or like some innovative tech side idea. I'm really good at using good ideas that have been built, but I'm definitely more of the generalist that knows how to connect everything and like build a product, you know?
Identical situation, exactly the same. Like I've not been trying to become like a pure craftsman in my career as a software.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get something off the ground, how to be good enough to participate on a team, and then learn the other components so that I can figure out how it fits together.
Like, I enjoy sharpening my tools in like engineering specifically, but at the same time, like I know other guys that I work with, or, you know, obviously in my network, that they only want to be an expert in their field. And it's just like, but there's so much out there to learn or to know about. What's like one thing that's wild is like, I was like, I'm never going to make like assets, like, you know, thumbnails and things like that. And guess what? I found out I just can't afford to have a designer always making me stuff. So I figured it out. Is it, are they the best? Probably not, but you know what? I did it.
You hack it for a while.
And I had to become a video editor. I had to become a lot of things. So you kind of have to just learn it.
You just dive in. And so if that's not something comfortable to you, then you're going to have a really hard time.
The worst thing I hate though is like reviewing contracts and that stuff. Like the worst. Like I will glaze over that stuff and procrastinate to the nth hour of the day. I can't help it. But
Well, one of my first, you know, just hires, not full-time hires, but just some contractor do something for me, was someone to keep the books, because that's extremely important. And if I have to do it, I will not survive the day. I'll find some reason. I'll find some emergency to go tackle rather than keep the books. And so
I open QuickBooks up like once a month just to make sure I have everything updated. But I also don't have thankfully I don't have a lot of like stuff flowing in and out, right? Because it's like smaller amount of clients, larger paychecks. And so it's a little easier.
That's nice.
You're moving a lot. You have a lot going on.
We do. And it's multiple producers and so it's kind of come in and out. And it was just kind of one of those things that I just decided it was worth the early budget for someone to just do some it was just light bookkeeping for the most part, but just the fact that I knew someone else would be on top of it, and I just had the ability to read the financial statements and keep an eye on things was important to me. That's one of those things, like, you can be a good generalist, but there's going to be something that you really hate doing or really are terrible at doing. And that's sort of the thing that aside from what your business needs, if that's what you need as a CEO, as a founder, then, try and spend the money to get that early on if you can.
So I'm curious, are you completely removed from writing code right now?
Completely removed from writing code now. Yeah, I think the last commit I did was probably in June. So
how about pull requests? Do you review any code?
I don't review any code. They review their own code, and everything has gotten better. So everything's.
Yeah. Any part of you miss that?
Some days, I would say that it's one of those things that your default when you feel overwhelmed is to try and go do the thing that you're familiar with doing instead of tackle the thing that you're not familiar with doing.
I'm so guilty of that.
Yes, that's a very big temptation that every person needs to be aware of. That is literally the default response. So that was one of the things of hiring the first Elixir engineer to do all the back end work for us, was I was sitting there and going, like, I am too tempted at times of difficulty to just go, like, I need to spend the whole day coding because this is a realm that I'm familiar with and can get done. And so that was the other thing too, is on the one hand, I had to offload something like bookkeeping to say, like, I need someone else to do this really tedious job because it just is mind numbing to me. And then on the other side, I needed someone to do something I was really familiar with so that I wouldn't default to go solve problems that way.
Oh man, you like just nailed my biggest weakness that I didn't even realize was my biggest weakness. Cause like, yeah, when I have something really hard to do or I'm not sure how to tackle it, I go and work on that feature I don't really need.
Yes.
Or that refactor that's been just bugging me for, yeah, I am so guilty of that.
Yeah, 100%. It takes a little bit to recognize, but once you do, and that's what I told him when I brought him on, is I was like, this is now your code base.
Don't let me in it.
We're going to have a transitional time period to pass this off, which is going to be as short as it possibly can. And then I don't ever want to touch it because I know I have things to focus on and I can't get into this. I've got to force myself into playing my actual role here in the company.
I feel like that is really good advice because yes. I'm guessing my whole audience would do that. If you're a founder or technical founder, you're probably interested in Elixir and you're listening. And yeah, we always retreat to our code because sometimes you like, I wouldn't say I'm like an introvert, but I definitely lean towards hiding behind a screen.
Yes.
When you don't want to go, like boots on the ground or all the hard work that actually takes to grow a brand.
What's interesting is I actually learned that concept from my first career before I became a software engineer, which was actually as a wildland firefighter.
Oh, nice. That's cool, man.
I did that for a couple of years after I served a mission for the LDS church. I came home, I did that for a couple summers, and they do a whole bunch of, that's a great place to learn leadership and group like dynamics and stuff like that, because you can't have someone slacking. It's literally a risk to the whole team,
right,
and to trying to accomplish it's a high risk scenario. So everyone's got to be on board. And so when you're going through the early training, they give you these examples of like historic fires that led to existing procedures. Mm-hmm. And so that's why which is just a great way to train anybody, because procedures can seem meaningless until you get the background, and then suddenly you get why it's really big. But one of the examples that they gave was that you had this team of firefighters. This guy was promoted because of lack of personnel. This guy was promoted just for that fire to the role of the crew boss on this particular crew. and they were fighting this fire, and there was all these indicators that they needed to get out of there. It was no longer safe for them to be in the area that they were in. But he wasn't paying that because his job previous to that was running a chainsaw. And so when things started to get crazy, he fired up his chainsaw and tried to cut his way out. And so he was not looking at the overarching picture. He was focused on this task that he was familiar with in front of him. And that was one of those lessons from that experience that I picked up and said, that is really important to know. And that helped me be aware of it here, as I'm like, I'm being that guy right now. I'm not paying attention to the wider world. I'm getting locked into what I'm familiar with.
Man, that's such good advice. And it's cool that you came from like such a drastic different like career path to what steered you towards software? Just wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so here's the bizarro path, right? I did firefighting for a few years, really did not want to go to school for kind of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. It didn't fit me really. After I did that, I'm like, well, I'm getting married. I should probably have something that's a little bit more family friendly career. I had a friend who was in sales. I went and did sales for a few years actually. And so when I worked for Spingo, I was doing B2B sales for them. That's what I was doing. I was selling ad space. And I was like not a top tier salesperson, but I was willing to take the pay that they were offering, and I was interested in what they were doing. And like I said, the team was really small. I was like employee number 8 early on. And the most other people in the company, besides a couple of the founders, were the engineers writing the software. And so I got to know the software engineers, and I'm like, these people feel like they're from my tribe. I think like this. And I've had no idea where to apply it. And I just started talking to them and asking questions and getting into like, what is programming really like and stuff like that. And some of them were like, well, there's online courses for Python. You can do that. So I took an online Python course, and I'm sitting there taking it. And I look at my wife one evening, and I was like, this is how I think. I think algorithmically, I think logically, yeah. I think in sort of this Boolean way of working through problems. And it was just a really natural fit that I found later than I would have liked to, but it kind of led to a cool career path with interesting learnings along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the immutable side of things too is how people do naturally think. So yes. Like when you're like using a functional language, like yes. I always say, I wish I learned a functional language before I learned OOP, because yes. OOP was so hard for me to wrap my head around. And then when yes. I found functional, I was like, oh, this is just how you think. Like that's just an engineering brain, right? Step by step. Yes. And that's it.
Yes. That's one of the good indicators to me of good tech in general, is that it's easy to reason about. And if you're working on building your own thing, whether you're talking about UX or your own framework or whatever, you should be driving towards simplicity that you can explain well to other people. That is extremely valuable. You know, don't get over sophisticated, try and get simple. And that's definitely what functional programming was to me too, was I was like, oh yeah, state management, you know, it's
right. Well, like where all your bugs and issues come from and what makes yes. code hard to follow and read is object-oriented programming. The fact really, you can have singletons and all these different states held in different places, and you can pass around an object, and if you change it in one place, it can change in another. Like that's a mess.
That's a huge mess. And my first job in Python was all OOP, and it was like inheritance hell. Like it was inheritance hell. It was really like, okay, I gotta travel through to find out what the actual implementation is, and try and map out this crazy object relational structure that was just so challenging. And then I was just curious the whole time and ran into FP, and they're like, nope, you don't do that.
All these programming like patterns that were invented to yes. get you through the horrible design of OOP. Like that's why we have design pattern books.
yes. Because yeah, that's exactly right. It's like, why do we have so many libraries in JavaScript? to make up for JavaScript. So how much tech is trying to compensate for, or patterns or practices are trying to compensate for a bad foundational structure. And that was kind of the uncomfortable thing moving into functional programming at first, especially closure space, was like, where's, like, we have these patterns, but they're not, so, but it's not books this thick to talk about your
Right.
patterns. And it's just like, well, there's these ways you combine functions and can create higher order functions and all that kind of stuff. And then you just kind of layer your app this way.
And then some message passing, and
message passing.
And then if you do need state for some weird reason, we got like gen servers. And
yeah, exactly. You have state management things, again, that you can reason about.
That are isolated processes.
You have some guarantees in place that you can rely on without heavy management yourself. So
what's wild is when I first started learning Elixir, I only knew it was good for what I was doing. I didn't really understand the OTP side of things and like the processes side. So I just like started writing Elixir code like I was writing JavaScript, like Node.js REST API, you know, like completely wrong. Like rewrote it several times, but like I'm also so grateful for like some learning, like some pain, I guess, in the learning curve. And that's kind of, and then it inspired me to make some like tutorials. I was like, people need to like kind of get off the ground faster with this stuff. And
absolutely.
I started my YouTube channel just to kind of like get a product off the ground faster. Like I built content from my perspective where like I have a product idea, I want to build it. I don't really need to learn everything about Elixir right now. I'll learn it when I get there. And that's kind of like, I didn't touch OTP or gen servers for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I had a reason to learn about them, and I was like, "Oh, these are the most magical, amazing things ever."
Yes, yeah, and that's the way it should be too, right? You shouldn't leap to concurrency until you need it,
right? Because you'll use it for the wrong things, especially if you're coming from OOP. You'll just start using it for state management in like really nasty ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is garbage. I should go back to OOP because it's not working well. No, you're using it wrong.
All right, so I think we can like start to wrap things up. This has been an awesome conversation, but if you were to like have any kind of advice that you wish you knew from day one with Crofter, what do you have anything that like any like huge, not really huge mistake, but something you wish you could have avoided in the start?
Yeah, really simple. It was like we kept, I guess it's one of those things. It's like it's so easy to look back. It's so easy to look back and say I should have done this differently. And like, all right, next time I won't make these same mistakes in terms of building a company. But of course, I'll make new ones because I didn't make the same mistakes with Crofter as I did with TaxBit. I just made new ones, so I'll make new ones next time. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing for us was just not pivoting soon enough, which is interesting because we pivoted pretty seamlessly at TaxBit. It became a little more apparent. But for me, I looked at this and like I was so averse. It's like we saw this logistics problem and we're like, how are we going to solve the fulfillment issues? Like maybe we can partner with somebody. Like maybe we can find the right producers that have this handled. And we're just kind of thinking about it for a long time because anytime we thought about doing logistics, it was just like, we can't do it. It's too much. It's too much to take on. It's too much out of our wheelhouse. And that's not unfounded, right? There's lots of people who get involved with industries that they don't understand and they jump in and they make a bunch of mistakes because they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That was good, but I wish I would have earlier been like, okay, I am now realizing the only way to move forward is to get into the logistics side and accept that that's a necessity based on all the little problems and feedback that we're having on so many levels, and jumped into that with that humility of we don't know what we're doing, so we better go find someone who can help us know what we're doing. But I just wish I would have done that sooner. I wish I would have
I
really.
feel like I understand why the hesitation on that pivot though,
Yeah,
because that's a big, that like logistics is a lot. Like you're a logistics company now. Like,
we are. We're a 3PL.
yeah.
Yeah, we're a 3PL. So it's not trivial. So that's why I kind of say, like, we did have good pause to not go into that area.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I would have, but it's one of those things where you what you want to do in your decision making process is recognize what options you have and what options you don't have as quickly as possible.
Hmm.
Because once you get to that point where you're like, the only way through is this is our only option, everything else is not going to be sufficiently solve this problem, then you can just tackle it. And you can just say, okay, that's where we're at, and that's the only way to make it successful. And that's kind of how I look at it, is if I would have sat down and thought a little bit more thoroughly earlier on about each attempt. But again, we learned from each attempt to solve the problem anyway. So it's hard to piece together your learning process and think about how you could have shortcutted it. And kind of, I guess that kind of brings me to a really important point for startups and anybody who's trying to get into the startup space. And that is, your number one priority early on is just survival. Can you survive all of your mistakes? Can you make your mistakes cheaper, faster, shorter, to get where you're needing to go? And can you plan things that way? Because there's lots of really great ideas and really smart people who just didn't last long enough to solve their problems, or solve their problems right towards the end. And that's, by then it's too late. And
I
so
think it's really easy to build something like a really awesome product and then not stick through the actual hard, like being like a technical person. So you're a technical founder, right? You can build something, building the platform or the product. That's the
yeah,
easiest part of what you're doing now.
yeah, yeah, it's idea, and then it's building it, and
Yeah.
it's getting people to use it.
Yeah.
That's the hard part of
I've
everything.
had a lot of really good ideas and products I've built that have just failed because I didn't have the grit to push through, or I didn't actually love my idea enough. And that's
Yes.
like kind of what happened with my fitness marketplace. I didn't
Yeah.
like dealing with fitness, and I put this in quotes, influencers, because it it was my day to day. I I had to
Yeah.
deal with these people that wanted to feel special and have all the attention on them, you know?
Yes. Yes. That can be challenging. And for us, it's like we're obsessed with changing how people purchase their groceries in a way that is going to fix America's health problems, which
Yeah.
are rooted in processed food and excessive use of agrochemicals.
Yeah.
And I emphasize excessive use because, growing things without any agrochemicals at our population is pretty challenging.
Mhm.
But it's been excessively used, and so here we are, obese and diabetic and cancer and all kinds of different chronic illness. Like, our issues in America are not disease, they're chronic illness
Yeah.
issues. And it all comes down to the things that we're putting into our body in one form or another, with the top of the list being our food. And so for me, it's like, I don't really care what stands between us and solving that problem. We're going to solve that dang problem and get people on a better track, because the stories of people who have changed how they eat and started eating clean and overcame major problems, major health issues, and had those reversed are really inspiring. So I don't care what
100%.
I don't care what stands in the way. We can make
Yeah.
it happen if we care about what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, I love it. Like I love what you're doing with Crofter. I'm gonna check it out and probably start being a customer. So I think it's inspiring. It's awesome to see like tech mixed with like actually making a difference. Like it's always cool to see a tech product that like not only like I don't know, you're always seeing like SaaS products, right? Something to help organize your digital clutter or something among that. But this
Yeah.
is like such a useful
Yeah.
niche, and it's cool. Like you're actually providing a lot of services, not just like providing healthy food, right? You're helping farmers stay in business too, where they're not just kind of stuck to the big food processors.
That's right. It's helping farmers. It's helping our national security by making sure that we're food independent. It's helping small producers have a market that they wouldn't have otherwise, and it's helping consumers. So when you find those sort of win-win-win scenarios where you're solving multiple problems simultaneously that are significant and real, one of the things among the ranching and farming community is they have a suicide rate of like 3 to 5 times higher than the average suicide rate. And the reason is that most farms are multi-generational. And when they get to a point where they're overloaded with debt or they can't compete because they didn't get big fast enough and in time, they feel not that they're losing their job. It's not like getting laid off from a tech company. They feel that they have squandered or lost their heritage. Like it's their legacy of like 5 generations of farming. And that's significant to those people. And we care about that. Like it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle. It's their identity.
Our farmers they need to be realized as being like the backbone and most important piece of our country, our survival. So
100%.
Yeah. And like financial stress alone is hard enough. And then piling on like, the whole genetic line, like your whole gene pool, like, to feel that way, it's hard.
Yes.
So well, I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a lot of fun chatting with you, and you gave a lot of good advice. So I hope everyone listening, you learn a little bit, because being a founder is hard, and you gotta absorb the advice wherever you get it. And like sometimes people don't really know where to find like mentors and things like that. So you find it through books and podcasts, right? So
absolutely. And I'm happy to have any conversation with any of your listeners who are trying to start their own startup, because I love the space. I'm knowledgeable about the space. I'm experienced, and I love helping new people get involved in making their dream or their vision happen. They just need to know that I'm going to give them the hard truth to it straight, which is going to be the most valuable. But I'm going to say things to them like, just, I want you to know that your idea is useless and execution is everything. So just
so stop asking for NDAs for your damn ideas.
Yeah, that's right. Don't ask me for an NDA, because I'm busy with my own idea, brother.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Where can people find you? What is Crofter's website?
Crofter.com.
Okay.
That's how you can find us. If you're in Utah and Salt Lake County and you want healthy beef, pork, chicken, eggs, microgreens, and bread, all locally raised and sourced, you can find it there. And in the next couple weeks, watch out, because we will be adding delivery to our services. And then, of course, you can find me at LinkedIn. So Crofter.com is where you can find our website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bobby. And everyone else, thanks for tuning in, and have a good weekend. I'll see you on the next stream. Testing.